Hello everyone! Due to popular demand, today I'm going to show you how to color this girl and her teddy bear. Although I don't go over every step in detail, this tutorial will give you enough guidance to complete this piece. For today's tutorial, I'm going to be using the Sublime Watercolor pack and the mixed canvas that is included in the pack. Everything will be linked below. A few weeks ago, I uploaded a shorts video of this piece and some of you wanted a detailed tutorial on it. Unfortunately, I didn't film it at that time, but you can download my sketch and insert it like this. So here's the sketch. We'll go to the layers panel and make a new layer so that we can start to color. And I tried my best to replicate the original colors, but it might be slightly different. We'll start off with this color here and use the bold rough brush. Now we're going to start coloring the teddy bear. Once you color the head, you can make a new layer to color the other body parts. It's best to do this because we want to add stamps later on and it makes everything easier. Once you color the arm, you will have to make a new layer for the ears, the body, etc. During this tutorial, I plan to show only the core steps and not include every little detail because that will make the tutorial way too long. And so I will show you how to color, add shadows, and extra little details. Once you have all the components colored, we'll want to get the bloom number 1 stamp. And let's go back to the head layer. And you'll want to stamp along these edges near the pencil lines. This will create that fuzzy look, and since it's a teddy bear, a stuffed animal, we want to create that softness. So this is an important step. And you'll want to add this stamp to the other layers as well. And once you fill this up, you can now use the basic blender because as you can see there are some spots that look a little bit uneven, so I'm just trying to push that inside. And let's go to the ears layer and just use the stamps once again to fill it in. And here it is. Once that's done, you'll make a new layer on top of the head layer and make that a clipping mask. And then we'll grab a slightly darker brown and stamp along this area where there might be a shadow behind the arms. And you'll also want to use the basic blender to kind of move the paint around. And you can just kind of test if more stamp marks are needed. Just like what we did now, we're going to make a new layer on top of the ears layer and make that a clipping mask. And again, we're going to use the stamp to create some shadows behind the head. Again, I'm using the basic blender to move the paint around. Now that I've shown you how to color the bear and his fur, I will now make a new layer to show you how to color the teddy's overalls. You can pick out a very light blue and we'll go back to the bold rough brush. And we'll just simply color the entire bottom area as well as the suspenders. Once this step is done, you'll want to make a new layer on top of the suspenders layer and make that a clipping mask. And we'll pick out a slightly darker blue and use the bloom number 1 stamp again to create shadows. You'll want to stamp it in areas that will have shadows or a little bit of darkness. And also you can make a new layer on top of this layer and make that a clipping mask and use the stamps once again to add shadows. The bottom area will definitely have more shadows. because the light is not really hitting that area. And you can use different shades of blue and build it up. Just going to go back to this layer to add a bit more. Basically, it is rinse and repeat. And that is how you color this teddy bear. Now, let's move on to the little girl. What we want to do is to create a new layer for all of the different components that we will be coloring. So there will be a new layer for her hair, a new layer for her face, and one for her dress and shoes, etc. We want to make sure that there's a base color for all of the different components. So for her hair, this blonde color is the base color. For her dress, pink is the base color. After you have all of the base layers colored, we'll want to make a new layer and make that a clipping mask. And we'll do that to all the other layers. And again, we're going to be using the Bloom #1 stamp. Take a darker shade of pink and start to stamp along this right side, and then right below her dress, I guess, the top portion of her dress. Anywhere that will have more shadows and the areas that the light is not hitting. Let's go to this layer now and add some stamps. The right bottom side will of course be a little bit more darker. And after you add these stamps, now we can add a new layer on top and grab this pink right here, and we'll go back to the bold rough brush and we're going to add some details to the dress. So there's this pencil line right here. We're going to kind of go over that area once again with this pink. Sorry, I had to just change that color because it didn't show up. So you'll want to add a bit to this sleeve just to add some definition like that. Let's add some lines here. There will be some crinkles along the top, and you can just blend that out with a basic blender. Just trying to see how it looks like. We can grab a lighter pink. That looks pretty good. Let's bring it down, and you can also add some lines to the dress. Once added, you can also blend it out to make it softer. Real watercolor wouldn't have such harsh lines, so it's best to blend it out. You can also add these details to her sleeve. And now let's make a new layer on top of her face layer and make that a clipping mask, and use a slightly darker pink to kind of add shadows to her face area as well, underneath her hair where there will be shadows. You can use this method for any other component that needs shadows, and so her legs, maybe her arm area. So this is a very useful technique. Also, you can add some details to this bow by adding in some lines like this and then blending it out with a tiny blender. Blending it out will make it look more natural and soft. After that, you can make a new layer on top of this layer here, the bottom portion of the bow, and make that a clipping mask. And then you can select a slightly darker red. Again, we'll use the Bloom #1 stamp and try to create some shadows underneath that bow there. That red really didn't match, so I'm just trying out a different shade of red now. Also for her stockings, we'll want to create a new layer on top of that layer and make it a clipping mask. And once again, we want to create some shadows underneath her dress because her stockings will obviously have some shadows being cast. And so this is where you can take a slightly darker color, use that stamp, and then you can also make a new layer on top. And now we're going to grab the 6B pencil right here and just draw on some lines using a very light brown color. All you need to do is just draw on very faint lines like this. Just very gently, you can just draw it from top to bottom like that. Now that I look at it, I think it would have been better if I chose a lighter color, but it is what it is. For her hair, all you need to do is to just add on different shades of blonde. So I'm adding in more color over and over again on top of the base layer. And you can also blend it out using the basic blender. And that is basically it for this tutorial. I didn't go over all of the steps in detail, and I hope you're okay with that. If you have enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.